Hello everyone, this is Aaron Johnson. I'm coming to you again today from Southern National Motorsports Park. We've released our most recent video showing the line we run. Today I thought I'd show you how I qualify at Southern National and talk about some of the adjustments I make to the race setup to try to build a qualifying setup. Today we're in the Chromium Puma Legends car that we used for our Chrome tutorial. And what I'd like to do today is I'm going to use about the same approach. So we're going to start out by hopping in the car. We're going to run 2 hard laps on the setup that we're using for the races, so our race setup. We're going to run like the tires are nice and warm, and we're going to see how the car responds. So let's go ahead and crawl in to the cockpit, and we'll jump in and run a couple of quick laps. Oh, before we do that, let me show you what I've done here. So I started out by running about 10 really hard laps in my race setup to see what kind of time I could reach. My best time was right here. That's the 15.596 on the race setup. The idea is to try to get our qualifying setup to where it approximates that best race time. And so that's what we're shooting for. So now we're in the race setup, and instead of running easy like we did when we ran this 15.797, we're going to come out and we're going to drive the car as hard as we can. So let's crawl in. Follow the same line you typically follow. Try to snap across that marker line. Car's already loose. You can see that going into between 3 and 4. Loose coming out, really having to fight to hold on to the car coming out of 2. And you can see the car really loose again coming out of 4. This time I didn't manage to catch it. So on the race setup on cold tires, the car is going to be loose. If we were in a race situation, most drivers are experiencing that loose feel. So that's not something that's going to be a shock. You drive a little easier. You run, instead of your 15.6s, you're maybe running 15.7s those first couple of laps as the tires come in. You can't really do that for qualifying. So what are we going to do? Well, I'm going to go on into the pits and I'm going to make a change. And the change that I'm going to make is the same change we made to qualify at USA International. I'm going to drop the stagger in the rear by 1/8 of an inch. Basically go down 1 click on the stagger, and then I'm going to see how the car behaves. So I'm going to hop back in the car here after going down 1 click on the stagger. I'm going to wait a second to let my colleague here get past, and then we're going to run a good hard 2-lap qualifier. And this time I'm going to do a couple of the qualifying things that I do. At Southern, I don't scrub the tires like I did at USA. The corners are banked a little higher. It might make a little bit of a difference, but I tend not to do it. I find that for me at Southern, the straightaway is so short that if I'm scrubbing the tires too much, it messes with the way I get into the corner. So that's partly my skill as a driver. You may be able to scrub and do what you need to do. So we're going to come out, we're going to run our typical lap, only we're going to do something a little different here as we go into the turn. Instead of shooting for this mark, we're going to wait, we're going to get off the throttle, and we're going to shoot for this mark, and we're going to turn down hard, and we're going to use the banking of the track to get a run. So on our first set of laps, we were doing about 87 miles an hour when we got to the flag stand. Our goal on this first qualifying lap is to be around 89 miles an hour when we get to the flag stand. So let's watch how that works. Turn across here. I actually was a little late. Get really on the throttle hard. Use the banking, and when we get to the start-finish line, we're at 89 miles an hour. From here, we're going to run our typical line, remembering that we're going to be carrying a little extra speed into turn 1. So we may have to get off the throttle just a little early or get on the brake just a little early to compensate. Maybe even get on the brake a little harder. Slipped up a little bit in that corner, so we're going to lose a little speed coming out. Still running 90 by the time we get to turn 3, right down on the white line. Car wiggled a little there, like it might still be a little loose coming out too. But still a 15.619, a lot loose getting into turn 1 there. Still a 15.619. That would be a pretty good qualifying lap. It should put you in the top half in a Legends car top split with the best drivers. So you should be very competitive. And if you're in a lower split, a 6.19 should put you somewhere in the top 2 or 3 or 4 cars. So I noticed on that lap that the car was just a little bit loose still. And so I used a slightly different adjustment. If you go back onto your garage page and you go onto the chassis page and you look at the camber settings, you'll notice that the right front camber typically tends to be negative, the left front tends to be positive. If we take a little bit of camber out of the right front, say go from minus 5.4 to minus 5.2, believe it or not, that tightens the car up because the tilt of that tire riding up on its edge raises the right front. So as we change that camber setting, we take camber out of the car, we may actually tighten the car up a little bit. So that's what I decided to do this time. I decided to go from minus 5.4 to minus 5.2 on my right front. That's going to tighten the car up just a little bit. And my hope is that what I'm going to see when I tighten the car up just a little bit is that I'm getting through the corners just a little bit better. And that's going to maybe allow me to get down from that 619 maybe down to around 6 flat, which is kind of my goal. If I can be down around 6 even, I'm going to be pretty happy. So let's crawl in here. We're going to run another 2-lap qualifier, this time with an 1/8 of an inch of stagger out of the rear and the right front tire with 1 click less camber. So the camber is 1 click less negative, from minus 5.4 to minus 5.2. I'm going to drive slow here and let my colleague get out in front of me so that we've got plenty of room to race. And we're going to hop on it. We're going to run the same qualifying line, and we're going to have the same goal, 89 miles an hour at the flag stand. Turn down, roll into the throttle hard here, and pull some speed. At the flag stand, well, yeah, I think we're there. Let's back that up where we can really see it. At the flag stand, we are at 89. We just barely got there. We're not carrying quite as much speed as we were before, so it might be better to wait a little later like I did in that initial qualifying run. We'll go ahead and follow the line. Into the corner, touch the brake. I was using just a little more brake there because of the extra speed. Still doing 90 as we go into turn number 3, right down on the white line. This is going to be a good lap. Out and up against the wall. And that's a qualifying lap of 15.593. Probably not good enough to get the pole in the top split, depending on who's in it. But you should be somewhere in the front 2 rows. And as with most tracks, when you're racing against the best competition, it's really difficult to work your way from the back to the front. So qualifying is going to be a key. Let's go ahead and watch the rest of this lap. Not going to be quite as fast. We weren't carrying as much speed into 1 and 2. And it's still going to be pretty good though. Got through 3 and 4 okay. It should still be a pretty decent lap. A 7:72. So that first lap's going to be the key. So let's back this up and watch this full qualifying attempt from pit to pole. Up against the wall. Remember to stay high. Use the banking to your advantage. Then run your normal line. Maybe a little extra brake because you're carrying more speed. Down onto that white line again. Roll into the throttle. And that's a good lap. That's our 15.593. That's an excellent lap. It'd be a good qualifying lap in any split. It'll put you in the top 2 or 3 rows in the top split, maybe on the pole, depending on who happens to be in there with you. Track temperature was 94 degrees, so nice and warm, and a pretty good lap. For the Johnson iRacing team on the Johnson iRacing Network, this is Aaron Johnson saying, go fast, turn left, have fun.